Now, before we get going, the real question is the stream going? It is. Okay, fair enough. Sweet.
It is. There we are.
There we are. Welcome.
There we are.
Nice.
Oh, there's six people watching. That's an all-time high.
It might tie our all-time high. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a record breaker.
Sweet. Well, no, Adam, thanks for popping in with us to talk about, I don't know, probably just some random stuff. But I know for most of the people that will ever watch this are probably going to know who you are. But just for the uninitiated, maybe just your quick CV. You don't have to tell us like, where you went to school or anything, but
All right, yeah, I'm Adam Darowski. I am the number 10 Julio Franco card collector in the world, according to Trading Card Database. But by day, I work for Sports Reference. We make Baseball Reference, Stat Head, Immaculate Grid, all that fun stuff. I'm the one that gets to schedule all of the baseball grids, so all of your anger or happiness can be directed towards me on the baseball front. We've got other folks that do the other sports. Thank goodness, because I'm nowhere, remotely qualified to do the other sports. But yeah, that's my thing. I'm the I work in design and product there at Sports Reference and get to work on a lot of cool things. It's very much a dream job, and I really enjoy it.
Well, that's sweet. Now I know where to take all of my anger when I can't figure stuff out.
There you go. Don't worry, and people do. The DMs are open. We answer every email, we answer every DM. So feel free to bring it. We want to make it better.
Well, I think everybody knows who these other two are, so I don't think we need to intro anybody that would be watching this. But you guys can if you want to go ahead. I mean, world famous, obviously, but
Absolutely, yes,
Sure.
Father and son. We do stuff with video games that 5 people like. Roster money, exactly.
Roster money.
That's what. No, in all seriousness. Go ahead, Jake.
Foremost digital video game baseball historians.
Serious
the show.
Serious history in a
know.
medium that's really difficult to do. We're not computer programmers or anything. It's just using what they give us, the tools, MLB The Show, for stuff we want to play. We don't want to play current seasons. We want to play like 1915 and combine everybody together. Yeah. Negro Leagues,
No one else.
Mexico.
No one else is putting raw meat Bill Rogers into an MLB The Show roster on there.
And it's an insane amount of work, and the hours we put into it it's just a hobby, and yeah. But I'll defend it as a serious historical whatever.
I'm going to jump in because it is historical research, because I do research on things like the 25th Infantry Wreckers, which is an all-black Army team that had Bullet Rogan, Heavy Johnson, Dobie Moore, and I'll share with you guys these are the stats I found. That this is kind of a cool picture of the stadium I found, and all of a sudden you make them in the game and all of a sudden bring it to life. And I think it's just so unique, the work that you do. Cause I can sift through newspapers and stuff, but all of a sudden I see these animated, versions of these players playing a game on a stadium that looks like the stadium they played in. And it blows my mind.
And that's a testament to SDS giving us some of the tools to do that with. And to their credit too, they've started to add some of those legends in their game and actually licensing some of the money going to the families. They got Josh Gibson. Never thought we'd see that till this year, but yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, my favorite quote from Bonnie about doing that is we did the 1915 project, which is probably the most really weird one.
Right.
And I did I don't know, maybe 20%. So not as much as these guys did, but he was saying, yeah, we spent all that time on that. And I think I'm the only one that ever played it.
I'm the only one that's going to play it.
Which I think is relatively true.
And we have, go ahead, Jake.
I was going to say, we have been working on this stuff since 21. I've played maybe 3 projects.
But not like even a full season.
No,
No.
hasn't happened.
But
Just
enough about us. Let's talk about Baseball Reference and Adam.
Yes.
Yes.
So since it's my job to keep the train on the tracks, the first item of business that we had, since we're here to talk Hall of Fame stuff, right? So the first thing that we had was to talk a little classic era ballot that just happened. So around the horn to everybody, just a general, what are your thoughts on the recent election? Who got in, who didn't get in? Adam, I'm sure I've seen some of your thoughts, but if you want to expand on those in a non-character limited fashion.
Right. Yes. So I have podcasted about these era committees. I did a ton of episodes leading up to this classic baseball era one, and I just have not recorded anything about the results because I'm still processing. So I'll just kind of give you where I am right now. It was obvious that there were going to be problems with, all of baseball from 1839, the first year Doc Adams started playing, all the way to 1980, all condensed into 8 names on a ballot. Like, there's a couple hundred great candidates from that era of baseball. And it's not just the players. This is the executives, the pioneers, the managers, the umpires, all of this, all on one ballot. And, we got the ballot, and it was 7 players and 1 manager, which, I'm more interested in players than the other categories. So that part's fine. It did lean heavily towards modern players. We had a couple candidates from the Negro Leagues who seemed to have momentum. But when the vote results came out, it was, Dave Parker got in, which was great. Dick Allen got in, which was great because he had come 1 vote shy twice. And I think Tommy John was 7 out of 16. And then nobody got 4 or 5 votes or higher, which is they don't like to show, how few votes the candidates at the bottom get. Because, they're all mostly dead candidates anyway, and they're going to feel bad. I don't know why. I would just probably just show it just so we know, who has the momentum, who does not. So Vic Harris had he was 2/3 of the way there last election. And now, he's stuck in the mud. Same with John Donaldson. He had 50% last time. I'm more of a Harris guy than a Donaldson guy, but, I also think Donaldson probably clears the bar for a Hall of Famer. The results for Parker and John make me realize, yes, they were focused or intended to focus heavily on living ball players, which I admire. That's good because the Hall of Fame has a issue lately with getting people in after their death. Dick Allen, a great example. So that's good, but I don't want it to come at the cost of any momentum on the other candidates. I feel very strongly about the Negro Leagues candidates. We still have not gotten a Negro Leagues candidate inducted in the player category since 2006. And that's a problem. All of this research has happened since then. The candidates we're getting, all the statistical research has happened, and the candidates that we're getting are not based on the stats. Like Dick Redding and George Scales made it to the ballot back in 2021. They were because of the stats. Otherwise, Buck O'Neill, it's about the storytelling. Bud Fowler, it's as a pioneer. John Donaldson is for this legendary barnstorming, non-major type stuff. And Vic Harris is as a manager, although he was a great player as well. It's frustrating as a Negro Leagues researcher to see the lack of momentum there and the lack of progress based, despite all of the research that's been done. So I have not formulated how to react to it yet because I'm happy for Parker. I'm happy that Dick Allen got in. Very happy. I think he was one of the very best players outside of the Hall of Fame. I'm less high on Parker, but I've come around more on him lately. I was like, oh, he's just a peak candidate, but it only recently occurred to me he's a peak candidate with 2,700 hits. That's kind of a longevity candidate too. Maybe I should be giving him a little bit more credit than I have been. So I'm happy he was inducted, especially since he's alive to experience it. But in terms of like from, my interest, the Negro League side of things, which is not everybody's interest, it's disappointing, but maybe that means these groups of candidates should not be on the same ballot.
No, absolutely. It's just it's a logjam and just too many eras on one thing. They're trying to, I don't know, all squeeze in. But the Vic Harris was the biggest letdown to me. He was probably the guy I was most wanting to see get in. But Allen, obviously, and Parker, I'm okay with, just because Parker was pretty cool. The cool factor.
It's is a vibe candidate. It's all about the vibes.
He was a vibe, and I guess he's also one of those guys that was, that high prime and a really big deal, in that mid 70s, late 70s. And it's tough. There's so many different directions you can go with this, with your Hall of Fame picks. But just I remember seeing that original list before they pared it down to the final guys or whatever. That, it was hundreds, wasn't it?
For this current year,
Or for the
that was a ballot that I did just because,
that was your ballot. Yeah, that's
right. I ran an election, so to speak, because I was like, I made a ballot of 250 candidates.
That's it. Yeah,
just to have people like vote and see who bubbled up to the top, and also just to show how ludicrous it is that we have so many different, eras being represented on one 8-person ballot.
And do we know why they do it that way? Why it's not more segmented out at least by era? Because to me, I'm stupid, but that makes sense to me, right? You would put people up against their peers as opposed to just the wide comparisons between like Dave Parker and then somebody that played like in the dead ball era. It's just almost like two completely different sports, really.
Yeah, very clearly, like modern candidates are the priority. Like they're living, people know them, people care about them, which I get it. But at the same time, I'm a historian, so I care about Harry Stovey and Bill Dowling had, momentum that was stopped. Doc Adams, one of the people who essentially wrote the rules of baseball, he had momentum, but it's just cut short now. And, he's up against, guys that played literally in 1987, like that's who they're competing with to get on the ballot. So, I understand that, people that come to Cooperstown want modern candidates. They want the guys they saw play. So, it's this thing where I understand why, but I don't agree with it.
And then for next year, I was seeing it was what? So 2026, I guess, I see contemporary baseball player is the what does that even mean?
Yeah, that means it's players who made their greatest impact after 1980. So there's 3 era committees. One is players from 1980 to the present. One is non-players, so the managers, umpires, etc., from 1980 to present. And the third one is all categories before 1980. So like 1980 to present is clearly the priority here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was talking about with the list going back. They were going back 1980 to the beginning of time. Yeah, when they were considering. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I would say it would be nice if they could segment it more, but I know that's probably not going to happen. So
right. On the one hand, this new system does get each of those committees reviewed every 3 years, which before they had like kind of a weird system where some were reviewed every 3 years, some were reviewed every 5, some every 10. So this one, technically, Negro Leagues candidates and, historical candidates are eligible more often, but it's also much harder to get on the ballot.
So like, I'm trying to think. So, for the contemporary one in 26, do we feel like that's going to be, I don't want to say a rehash, but like people that were on the last one just back again? Or do they make it a point to try to switch people out? Or do we know kind of how that ends up falling?
That's a really interesting question, because if you remember last time, they put Bonds and Clemens immediately on the era committee ballot and they got shut out. They got no support at all. So I'm very curious to see if they'll be on the ballot again or if they'll replace them with other candidates.
And that was some of their peers were voting too on that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was trying to find Lou Whitaker is the one they need to get in on that. Because he falls into that deal.
He can't even get on the ballot.
It's such a huge omission. A lot of that stuff that he was one of those steady guys and wasn't maybe as appreciated during his playing career. And then the new analytics and stuff really loves him and shows what a hell of a player he was. I mean, Trammell's in, that happened, and they're kind of, arm in arm, obviously.
Right.
But, and I'm sure Whitaker was ranked pretty high on that Hall of Stats website. You might have heard of it.
Oh yeah. It's funny. They were like each other's most comparable player. Like yeah. And David Metter here in the comments, he says this will be the first time Jeff Kent will be eligible, and I think that we might see a Fred McGriff thing where a person stays on the ballot the whole time, doesn't get in, but the second they're put on the Veterans Committee ballot, they're put in. Actually, Fred McGriff was well liked. Jeff Kent maybe less so. So I don't know if he'll have anything going against him on that side of things. But yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see if Schilling gets on again. Of course, there's like the Mattingly, Murphy, Albert Bell crew that they pull out every year. They put him on there. I think Hershiser's been on it a couple times. Some of the names that haven't really been, Whitaker, you mentioned, Kevin Brown is a great candidate as well. Kenny Lofton doesn't seem to get any respect from the Hall of Fame. David Cohn, Dwight Evans got 50% 2 cycles ago and then was left off the ballot the next time. So you never really know. Like, there's no such thing as momentum on the era committees. It's wild. Sammy Sosa, are they going to put him on or will they just ignore him since, Palmero and Bonds and Clemens got nowhere? Keith Hernandez, is he got someone that's going to get a look? Dave Stieb, now that Jack Morris is in, does that renew interest in Dave Stieb? But all these guys I mentioned probably won't get on the ballot. It'll be Don Mattingly, Dale Murphy, Albert Bell, Oral Hershiser, same things again.
Yeah.
Now, with some of these ballots, where do you start lumping in some guys who during their playing careers were more so viewed on a tier down, but where do you start placing some guys like Johnny Damon and, some other more cultural level guys like Valenzuela, where, traditionally they're most likely not in. Damon, I could come around on. Looking at it, it's similar to Parker, where you have a guy he's over the 500 doubles threshold. He's got, 408 steals, and then he's just under 2,800 hits. So it's like, where do you start placing some guys like that who maybe you could view them as longevity, which I would like to see that awarded more, depending on some guys. But at the same time, it's like, where do they kind of fall?
Yeah, it makes you wonder if a guy like Damon is going to do better than you'd think, because loved Harold Baines, but he's like the type of candidate that gets in these via these era committees, the long career, high career totals, and more we see these short career guys just get nowhere. Like, I think Felix is struggling on the ballot right now. Dustin Pedroia is struggling on the ballot right now. I'm happy to talk more about him if we want to get into him. Johan Santana was one and done. These guys that are like high peak, shorter career get nowhere, but eventually, you got your Baines and your Parker. Hardball Crazy says Al Oliver needs to be on the ballot. He's an exact Dave Parker candidate. And it's kind of surprising that he hasn't gotten in that route as well.
Love Al Oliver.
I think that serves as a good segue into talking about the actual ballot, the big ballot, the writer's ballot for this year. So I think the first thing that I had was, Adam, who do you think will actually get in? Not like who you want to get in, who do you think should, but just like who do you think will actually get the votes to get in?
I haven't looked at the latest, not Mr. Tibbs numbers, but I assume going into it that Wagner will get over the line and we'll see Ichiro and CC join him. That's kind of what I'm expecting to happen.
I could live with that. I like the CC getting in this quick.
I love the CC getting in this quick, but at the same time, I'm like, how much better is he really than Mark Burley? Like, I don't, right. I love CC getting quick because I think Mark Burley should also be like right on the cusp as well.
Yeah.
And Andy Pettit too. I'm fine with Andy Pettit as well. I have a slight Yankee bias, but I think starting pitchers just, we don't elect them. We seem to elect more relief pitchers than starting pitchers lately.
Yeah, I think that's where I land too, just on who's going to get in. I feel like it's probably those three, just from the ballots that I've seen, as abhorrent as some of them are. Like, I still feel like that's probably what makes the most sense, I would think. Because, I mean, Ichiro seems like a gimme. Obviously, Wagner's pretty much already that he's only got to get, I think it was like 5 more votes than he got last year, something like that. And then I feel like the Sabathia stuff it's already kind of happening, I feel, from the stuff that I've seen. So, I mean, that seems to make the most sense. And, I mean, 3 people in one ballot, that's not bad compared to what we've been getting.
What about Beltran? Where's he hanging at? On
Tibbs had a post on Blue Sky yesterday that had Ichiro at 100%, Sabathia at 92.9, Wagner at 85.7, and those guys are over. And then Beltran was the next closest through 28 ballots, sitting at 64.3.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing to look for there is like the plus and minus. Like, has he gained any votes from the group last year? And checking that. I don't see a recent one. Sorry. Okay. The net gained, let's see, Beltran was actually +4. So, he's making as much progress from last year as Wagner is. They're the 2 biggest movers from last year. Small sample size already. I don't think he's going to get in quite yet, but it looks like he's trending in the positive direction.
I have a question on one individual on this. I know Bonnie's answer to, but I'm curious. I feel like we've probably discussed it with Trey, but I am curious to hear opinions from both of you on this certain second baseman. So I know Adam he's been vocal regarding Dustin Pedroia, but where do people stand on Ian Kinsler?
I'm a big Kinsler fan because he cusses a lot. When he's playing, he was fiery. We watched all those Tigers games. I just liked he just seemed like just a gym rat kind of guy, grinder, and he's got some numbers at that position.
I mean, I would say that my bias is clear, obviously, here. But I mean, I would also say, like, I mean, that'd be cool. That's great. Like, he's in the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame, and I think that's awesome. But I mean, he's one of those guys that, like, down the road, if he got in, I think that'd be great. But it's hard for me to be like, he should get in now, because I don't think that's probably the case.
I mean, you can comp him to Utley too.
Right. I think that that trio of Utley, Pedroia, Kinsler are all really interesting. I don't think they're particularly too far apart, any of them. I mean, Utley's probably the best in terms of value. Pedroia wipes both of them out in terms of accolades, but I think all 3 of them are excellent candidates. I don't know if I quite have Kinsler on my 10 votes, but I certainly would not have a problem with him getting support or even getting in. Yeah.
If I had to pick one to put in my lineup, I'd probably go Laser Show, Pedroia. If you attack it like that, like, who's playing second for me today out of those 3? I'm taking Dustin.
Yeah, I struggle with whether my strong feelings for Dustin are based on the fact that I love him, like, as a player. I no longer identify as a Red Sox fan. I've stepped back. I'm a historian. All of baseball, is fair game there. But he is from the era where it was living and breathing Red Sox. And, I remember doing the laundry and like I'm folding 3 different Dustin Pedroia shirts for myself and my kids, that type of thing. Just to, some people have, the picture of Jesus Christ. Might as well have Dustin Pedroia in the house here at that time. So, just absolutely love the guy. So I have a little hard time separating like my, less emotional feelings about his Hall of Fame case with that. So one of the first names, honestly, that I check off on this ballot is Pedroia, but I'm curious what others think.
I think I just have to plead uneducated on probably Pedroia in that I'm sure there's obviously I take a cursory glance at things, but I probably don't get in the weeds as much as I probably should. Usually my votes I do on my ballot I'm very vibe heavy. Some cursory looks at the numbers, but usually vibes. But yeah, I think especially thinking about those 3 specifically where, hey, they all played the same position at around the same time. I feel like best case scenario, only one of them's going to get in because it'd be kind of weird to pick 2 from the same position of the same area. And I feel, but yeah, I don't know.
In terms of vibes, like Pedroia crushes the other 2, right? Am I reading that right?
I agree.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And I think Pedroia is kind of the second base version of David Wright too.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's another guy I would include in that group.
Yeah, I think if you're ranking the vibes, I think Utley's definitely last for various reasons. But yeah, I think probably Pedroia, Kinsler, definitely above him. But yeah, I'd never thought about him being the second base version of David Wright because I usually give David Wright a lot of credit for short career but high peak. But I guess I don't maybe lend the same courtesy to Pedroia as well.
I think we're seeing a lot of that. Even Kinsler just had a 14-year career. So a lot of these guys, we're not seeing the, the 20-year runs.
No, we're not going to see that anymore. Like
as much as we used to. Yeah.
The roster spots are too valuable. So we're not going to see those players hanging around, 17 relievers are on the rosters. They're not going to, have a hitter that's 40 years old anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Little side note here. I forgot that Kinsler and Pedroia were both at Arizona State at the same time competing for shortstop, and Kinsler ended up transferring to Missouri. So they're kind of tied even going back then. But yeah.
I remember
something that I've
please.
I was gonna say something that I feel like that because I've always liked Pedroia. I've always kind of viewed his career somewhat just in terms of just personally being kind of big haul and whatnot, and just I've always kind of viewed him as a Hall of Famer. But as we've dipped more into those 50s, 40s, 30s guys, they're very reminiscent of a lot of middle infielders that have. I'm trying to think of some names that come to mind, but it feels like a template guy for some stars that played within those eras, which I don't want to say should be used as a base to put
scrappy white dudes,
current guys in, but
Buddy Meyer.
There's a lot of similarities to some offensive players who have long since been inducted.
No, I've got a great one on that point. This one came from Jim Mollick of Pod of Fame. Love that podcast. But his comparison for Pedroia was to Joe Gordon, which I thought was really, really interesting because Gordon was a shorter career, high peak, super valuable, like did everything well. And also just an awesome ally and the integration of the game. That's a really cool thing that I've kind of stumbled upon. And it took him forever to get into the Hall of Fame. He got in through the Veterans Committee, and I don't think anyone has ever questioned it since then. Same thing. He's got like an MVP, tons of All-Star games. He won a bunch of World Series, just like Pedroia. I think they're very similar. The BBWAA fucked up when they left Gordon out, and they're going to do it again with Pedroia, and he'll get in through the Veterans Committee, and no one will question it.
Yeah, Gordon, 11-year career. 253 bombs at second base back then, and missed 2 years for military service. So yeah, you
I mean, you take away the injury seasons that Pedroia had, and you're looking at something very similar to what Gordon had.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Great stuff.
So, switching from who do we think will get in? Next point. Who are we hoping that will just stay on the ballot and not get booted this year?
Ooh,
I don't.
Felix.
Yeah, Felix. I don't know who's running out of time. I mean, you still got the Manny problem and the A-Rod problem on there. How long do they have left on the ballot? A-Rod's amazing player, drugs or not, but I mean, it's ridiculous the numbers that guy put up just short of Bonds. I mean, it's crazy how good that guy was. But that's a whole nother.
Another guy to kind of lump in with the Pedroia Kinsler Utley conversation, although being at the position right next door to them, Jimmy Rollins is another guy that I would love to see hang on and eventually get in somehow. I
Vibes.
can go either way on if he gets in by the primary ballot or if he's a VC guy, but I like the numbers that he has. He's got MVP, he's got a championship, he's got Gold Glove, and Clemente Award. I didn't realize you guys added that on here.
What's that?
So
I like that.
our number is 5%, right? They have to stay above 5% to
Yes.
stay on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, looking at returners, I mean, last year, Torrey Hunter barely stayed on, about 7%. K-Rod and Burley both had about 11. Rollins had 13. So I think those are probably from last year, somewhat in the danger zone if they lose some votes.
I mean, we do have a very strong group of first-year candidates, so I'm pretty concerned about those guys near the bottom because some of their votes are going to be taken away for some of the newer guys. I'm worried about Mark Burley. I want him to stay on. I'm a little less concerned that Pettit's going to drop off. He had like 20 votes more last year, so I think he'll be okay. I want to talk about David Wright some more. Hall of Fame is now ready to include this pitch framing discussion. So I'm curious to see if Martin and McCann stay on so we can have this discussion. I'm new to it. I mean, I don't know. That feels like a whole other topic. So I don't want to like overtake the conversation.
Let's derail.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
for the pitch framing thing, so I'm gonna forget the guy's name now, but sorry, guy, you're not going to listen to this anyway. But a guy from Fangraphs wrote a thing today about Russell Martin.
Jaffe, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's great. He's great.
About his candidacy in pitch framing and how that plays into it and all that stuff. And I said I was going to read it, and I haven't, but I am. But yeah, like looking into just the difference between, I mean, obviously I knew that Fangraphs War has pitch framing in it, but like when you look at it, like he's got 16 more Fangraphs War than Baseball Reference War, to which I'm also like, is that 16 war worth of pitch framing? Because like I know framing is important. I'm just not maybe, and it could be I just don't understand it. That's totally valid. But when I look at it, I'm just like, man, that's a lot of pitch framing war. Which I'm sure other things or calculations are different and whatnot, but
yeah, I was taken aback by that article. Well, not this has been looming, I guess. I have kind of chosen not to deal with it yet, but now that it's on the ballot, I gotta learn about pitch framing. I go to admit, I'm not an expert on it at all. But I also am very afraid of being the person that I railed against when I first became a Hall of Fame analyst. And, I started writing about Rick Russell and Gene Tennis, and people were like, oh, there's no way in hell I saw them play. They weren't a Hall of Famer. Who am I to say, Russell Martin wasn't a Hall of Famer? Maybe I should look into this and see what's going on. But yeah, you're right. 16 WAR for both him and McCann are completely framing. That's what it is.
Wow.
And I asked, like, where does the value come from in terms of framing? Like, who loses the value if McCann gains the value? and it was confirmed that with Fangraphs, it comes from the pitchers. Like, so it is, framing is technically 100% assigned to the catcher, has nothing to do with the pitcher. I don't know how I feel about that yet. I will say it doesn't have nothing to do with the pitcher. Like the pitchers who face those catchers most often, like based on the pairings, they divide the runs that way. So, you know, it's you're not like losing runs if you didn't actually catch that pitcher and stuff like that. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I'm still learning my way around it. But you know, all of a sudden it's on the ballot and we got to figure it out, because it's one of those things like if those numbers are right, they are Hall of Famers. If they're, you know, half of that value should go to the catchers, they're borderline. If, you know, a third of it, you know, then it starts to get a little fuzzy. So I'm very curious to learn more. So that's kind of the journey I started today.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too, because I even had to look at, I was like, okay, how does that even calculated from a standpoint of adding value? And I saw that it was, I guess they count every framed pitch as 0.125 runs saved. So every 6 strikes you steal, they count that as a run saved. To which I'm like, man, that seems like a lot, but I don't know.
And then go back to all the other catchers from before this data was available.
Well, I guess it can
That's
be
what I was
conditional
gonna
too.
say.
Yeah.
Because and I'm for dudes like Parrish, Freehand, Tennis getting inducted eventually, and it's like, it's just, I'm curious to see what can of worms it would open in terms of more of a push behind them.
Then you can go back in time and think about other strong defensive catchers or catchers that, you know, called a good game before this data, like a Benito Santiago or somebody like that. What was their framing like? I mean, we'll never know, but would he have been a Hall of Fame candidate with this data?
Yeah, it's almost like the same thing with any defensive metrics prior to a certain time. There's just no way to, other than using the extreme old calculations.
And like, I don't get too deep into I look at WAR just from a glance. I don't know. I prefer the Baseball Reference one, but when does the framing data begin? At what year is that calculated? It's not calculated for everybody else going back. It's just, what year does that start? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it doesn't go back very far. I think we've got like all of Piazza's career. I think I read today that like we're the very tail end of Carlton Fisk's career.
Really? So it does go back a ways.
Which,
like early 90s?
It might be. I'm not positive, I have to say.
Yeah.
But Sean Smith, who developed Baseball Reference WAR that we acquired from him many, many years ago, he actually did some framing. He used a framing model that goes back to like 1900 or something like that. So he tried to estimate it based on, like, you know, with or without you data. It's not based on I probably shouldn't say too much because I don't know exactly his methodology, but it's wild. Yeah, Piazza actually comes out as the amazing framer, whereas Pudge Rodriguez, you know, he was well known for his throwing. So, you know, a lot of these catchers, they have their reputation based on their throwing, when framing is a totally different skill. Like Piazza, turns out, was a great framer according to these numbers, but was not a good thrower, and Pudge is the opposite. But then you get some guys that, you know, like Molina, who did both very well. Yeah. And some guys like Domit, who did nothing well behind the plate.
And yeah, I was going to say a very surface level Google search tells me that we've got the technical framing data from around 2008 when PitchFX started. And then we've got the charting data from, and it thinks I gave a thumbs up. We've got the charting data from further back than that. So still not a ton of time.
I think Baseball Savant lists, I don't know how deep they go, but I do know that they have on their charts that they display for players on their website, they have a lot of their StatCast data going back to 2015, I believe.
So I'm curious about guys like Santiago too. Like this Sean Smith data has him as plus 64 runs as an estimate, which is about 6 wins that would be added to his total. But I'm curious, like, are umpires could, going back to like Earl Batty and stuff, were umpires racist? Do they, call fewer strikes for catchers of color and things like that? Which, I don't know. John Roseborough looks like he would get about 20 extra WAR, according to these numbers. So maybe not. Let's see what Batty would get here. Earl Batty, about 17 extra WAR. So I don't know if I should trust these numbers here. Like, really interesting stats here. But and Mike Scioscia, of course, is the poster boy for this. Are you sitting down? You're all sitting down. I can see you. According to like these projections by Sean Smith, it's possible that Mike Scioscia could have actually gained 32 WAR just from his framing.
That's a perfect example of a guy from that era that you would think like the template for a defensive first catcher, and that body, big burly.
Right. And then Darren Dalton loses 11 WAR, that type of thing. So I don't know what to think of, this is obviously different than the Fangraph stuff, which is based on pitch data. But, the Fangraph stuff, Posada loses a ton of value too, which I think.
What about Charles Johnson? Do you have that at hand easily?
Let's see.
That's a guy.
This older data that is not based on pitch data has him losing 15 WAR. So I don't know if we can trust that at all. I don't know what
that's wild.
Any of the newer models would do. Yeah, I mean, Denny mentions, there's no way he'd be willing to give that much credit. There's like huge values here. Like, are we like Mike Scioscia 32 WAR, or even like on the modern data, like the 16 WAR that we're talking about for Martin. One interesting part of it is that nobody's getting like a 16 WAR swing anymore. It's back when nobody really understood framing, that like there was that wide disparity. But now that people understand framing, there's like less of a disparity because the real crappy framers are out of the league, and that makes it harder to be that much above average because everyone's better.
Yeah, much less variance between everybody. Okay, well then there you go. That's something we all need to.
That's good stuff. Thank you.
To open our minds to, and not be those people that we talk shit about. So on the back of that, one thing I also wanted to bring up was a hotly contested topic here lately: relief pitcher value, and how that should be looked at or calculated. So yeah, open forum. I just kind of wanted to hear everybody's, and I know Bonnie and I can tag team on this because I feel like we're aligned on this front. But yeah, obviously mainly having to do with people that are on the ballot this year. So Wagner being the most prominent one, being that he's probably going to get in. And then you've also got kind of K-Rod lurking around down there somewhere too.
Again, vibes, but I'm big haul. I'd put Lenny Harris in because he's the all-time pinch hit leader.
I mean, there is not a single team at the time that would have traded, Mark Burley to get Billy Wagner. So from a value perspective, I just don't see relievers as anywhere close. Is Wagner among the best relievers of all time? Absolutely. I 100% think he's one of the very best. But if we're looking at like, there's a difference between Hall of Fame and Hall of Value. But there are so many starters that I would rather talk about than a relief pitcher. Like if Johan Santana did not do enough to last more than one ballot, how can we possibly talk about Billy Wagner?
Yeah,
like remotely.
Fair. Extremely fair.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I think too, it probably has to do a lot with, which I mean, like everybody's got their own opinion or view of what the Hall of Fame should be, right? And none of them matter because none of us get to vote anyway. But like, I know some people that I've interacted with do view it as a Hall of Value almost. Like, hey, this person created X amount of value. that's not enough to get in. Whereas I think of it more as a museum, right? In my personal Hall of Fame, we're getting in people that have, you know, great stories or have good vibes or are historic or the best at their position, even if that specific position, like relief pitcher or closer, you know, doesn't generate as much value because they pitch on a limited basis. But that's just my opinion. That doesn't make anybody else's less valid. That's just the way I look at it.
You know, Billy Wagner's career is essentially the same thing as Dwight Gooden through age 22.
See, but I don't know. That seems like a. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I mean, from a rate stat standpoint, sure. I mean, if you just cut off everybody at their absolute peak, everybody's rate stats would be really good. But,
I mean the volume too.
Oh yeah, but I mean, they did two completely different things, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of them won Cy Youngs.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
but
and then,
I think that, again, though, I think that's I just have a different point of view in that if all you're looking for is cumulative value, then sure, yeah, no, really, Mariano Rivera shouldn't be in because he's put up as much value as, you know, probably some random like Dave Steve. Not that I don't think Dave Steve should be in, but I mean that's basically like it's that type of that's where he is, as opposed to being he's the best reliever of all time. He's a very good starting pitcher in terms of value. If you're going just by that,
Steve's slider versus Mo's cutter.
I mean, we roll out the red carpet for relievers. Like, I feel like, I don't know, if you're a starting pitcher and your high peak didn't have the volume, you have no chance.
Man.
But if you're a relief pitcher, well, it's a little bit different here. And, you know, hitters too, like we're talking about Dustin Pedroia has like, is at 10%, you know, and, you know, who would have traded Dustin Pedroia for Billy Wagner? It was never going to happen. And sometimes you just got to look at like the amount that these guys were paid over the course of their careers too. Like that was one of the things about like the Omar Vizquel talk for a while there before he, you know, imploded his own case. Like nobody paid him. Nobody voted for him for, you know, MVP awards or any other types of awards. Like everything from like the game did not award him in terms of like, you know, assigning, you know, a figure to his value. And, you know, we kind of see it with like Billy Wagner. I mean, he earned some money, but nothing compared to the starting pitchers that aren't getting a fair shake on the ballot, or these position players who didn't play long enough. You know, we're talking about a guy with 903 innings here. Like he's going to get in this year, and it's fine. He's one of the best relievers of all time. I just think that it's wild that like a Santana and an Utley don't get in before him.
So,
and I feel like, sorry, 1 second, Mo. I feel like we do align on the fact that, like, yeah, I think Santana should be in too. Like, I don't want my and two. I feel like whenever I go to bat for Wagner, people think that I'm going bat for all relief pitchers, which is not the case. I just think Billy Wagner should be in because I think he was the best relief pitcher or one of the best relief pitchers of his era, and that's just my opinion. That doesn't mean I think K-Rod should get in or, you know, any other people.
Quisenberry.
There you go.
Now we're talking.
See, this is what I'm glad that you jutted in with that, because that was kind of where I was going to lead into, because I don't know if Adam and I have really talked about relievers on the side. I'm either way on it. I'm perfectly fine with seeing some of these guys get in, regardless of era. At the same time, I would love, you know, guys like Burley, Hudson, and pitchers like that, where
they fucked Tim Hudson. I'm sorry.
In a sense, they're still kind of their last of a breed, in a sense, where you got the death of the complete game, I guess, if you want to call it, where, you know, you have those guys dropping off, where if you want to compare them to some other guys that, you know, either in the era before them or their contemporaries within the era, they're not the shiniest gem on the field. But when you get down and you look at what they did, you know, I don't know, the words aren't going together there, but there's a candidacy there. But to kind of get back into the point I was going to get to, with relievers, what do you do with guys then, in a sense, when you look back at some eras with guys like Quisenberry, Sparky Lyle, and some of those guys where you had, the saves might have been lower if you want to value the save, but you have a lot more 100 plus inning guys,
Yeah, it
120
was
plus inning guys, 130 plus inning guys. Does that add an increase of value compared to dudes like Wagner, in these more recent areas where you have the 50 inning pitch guy, 60, 70?
yeah, just that role change. It was different in that fireman Rolad's Relief Man of the Year award era when they weren't so much. It was, Quisenberry would come in for 3 innings. And that's how he ended up with 120 innings a year and doing that, 3 times a week, even though he was throwing underhand 80 miles an hour, still takes a toll on the body, and he ended up with a 10-year career. But yeah, what's my point? Back to Tim Hudson. Him and I crossed paths a lot lately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like 5 times in the last 2 years. He doesn't know it though. I always see him at this restaurant in Auburn when I travel for work. That's what it is. And I saw him at Rickwood, but small, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Back on track.
But yeah, Mo, what you were saying about Burley, I do agree with that. It's kind of like the last throws of the you didn't have to throw 100 and have like killer overpowering stuff era. I feel like you don't see a lot of guys like that anymore that are, which maybe we're going back there with, I read last night that MLB put out this like groundbreaking thing that apparently like throwing like 99 mile an hour sliders is apparently not good for you. So I don't know if maybe there's a change coming for that, but
no.
So quiz time. All right. 3,000 innings pitched, 220 wins, 120 ERA plus, and eligible and not in the Hall of Fame since 1900. First, how many pitchers do you think it is?
I don't know a number, but probably fewer than you would think. Okay, so 2.
One of them is Roger Clemens. Are we ready to guess who the other one might be?
Russell.
Tim Hudson.
Tim Hudson.
Put him in. He got fucked. Tim Hudson got
Tim
fucked. Put him
Hudson.
in.
And I always see that guy at this meet and 3 place in Auburn. Put him in.
You should tell him next time.
I'm gonna stop him and I'm gonna tell him, say, you don't know me, but yeah, and you're a lot shorter than I imagined.
I've got a great fact to tell you though about yourself.
Mark V asks Kurt Schilling. Schilling may have been like a win short of that. I think he might have.
Schilling doesn't want to be in.
Right, he doesn't. 216 wins. He was 4 wins short.
Oh.
God, he's a piece of shit, but he was a great pitcher.
Yeah, he was.
I do want to. I wanted to toss out another reliever just to see what everybody thinks on this. So you're kind of stepping away from career saves at this point with this guy. Only 184 on the career, but it's a guy that had, over the course of a 16-year career, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years with over 100 innings. What do you do with a guy like Kent Tekulve that the innings pitched were there, the longevity was there, and he was good throughout most of his career? Because obviously he's not going to rank compared to some of these other starters that we have discussed. But when it comes to putting guys into the Hall, what do you do with people like him? Potentially guys like Jesse Orozco, where they had form of dominance, they have the longevity, they have innings pitch. What do you do?
Well, Orozco played forever. Was he more of a loogie towards the end? He had a couple years he was a closer.
John Franco has entered the chat. 424 saves and 138 ERA plus. He crushes everybody else we just mentioned in terms of those numbers.
As far as WAR, Tekulve's at 25.5. And yeah, like you said, a bunch of 100-inning seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, as a relief pitcher, I mean, think about that, 135 innings. I mean, that's what starters do now. I hate starting pitching now.
That's like Mark Eichhorn stuff right there.
Oh, 86 Eichhorn? What was the
Oh
year
my
he
God.
did that?
86 Eichhorn, like
86, 85?
unbelievable. 86
Yeah.
Eichhorn, rookie year.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And another submarine sidearm guy.
Oh yeah. I thought, Jake, I thought you were going with John Hiller here, but Tekulve is an interesting one. Hiller had some big years. Tekulve was more of a steady across the bulk of his career. Hiller was more high peak and then some other okay seasons.
Yeah, I was trying to pull some names
Yeah.
out. Another one that I would be fine with. I'm not nearly as interested in seeing an induction on this character compared to some of the other ones that were discussed, but a guy like Tug McGraw can enter the conversation if you're talking about some of these guys. But
Yeah,
I'm more of a quiz guy.
We're going deep. Yeah,
Deep into the RPs.
we're going deep. Since we're going deep, Mike Marshall in 74 with that 208 innings as a reliever. What the? That was Walter Alston, I guess. It was before Lasorda. What the hell were they
I guess
doing
before
there?
we sidetrack, I can top you with that with 1927 Wilcie Moore.
Everybody remembers Wilkie.
I remember Wilcie because we did that project. What the hell did he do? Oh, yeah. 213 innings. Yeah, nice. Led the league in saves with 13. Didn't even know what the hell that was then. ERA title as a reliever.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so wheel
All
us
right.
back on the tracks here.
Bring it back.
All
Trevor.
right.
Okay, next thing, we were going to hit ballots. So the idea here being just want to hear everybody's ballot. I'm going to pull up a reference for those that don't have it in front of them. The House rules here, though, are that you have to use all 10 votes. So none of this. I'm gonna vote for 2 people and then turn it in stuff.
Yeah, I have no problem with the 2 votes thing. For me, it's about trimming it down from 18 or something.
Right.
So who's gonna go first?
I mean, I've had my list since the beginning of the Hall of Fame season, so I'm happy to go first if that helps, folks.
Be our guest.
I have 4 strong yeses, which are Ichiro, CC, Utley, and Beltran. Where's Pedroia, you're thinking? He's just on my yeses. He's at the top of those yeses. For the yeses, I had Abreu, Burley, Felix, Dustin Pedroia, Andy Pettit. And I originally had Andrew Jones, but I struggle with Andrew Jones because there's some shit out there about Andrew Jones, and I'm struggling with how to handle that. So I'm tempted to just say, let's throw it to Martin to get another year of discussion about framing. And, where's A-Rod and Manny? If there were only 10 people I wanted to vote for, they would make it. That's fine. I have a I wouldn't hate it list as well, which is like people, if they got in, I'd be fine with it. That's where Wagner and Rollins and even Kinsler and Torrey Hunter and a whole bunch of guys are there too. I would have no problem if they got in. But, in terms of like picking the 10 that I'm voting for, yeah, Ichiro, CC, Utley, Beltran, Abreu, Burley, Felix, Pedroia, Pettit, and I think I'll just say Martin. What the hell?
Nice.
Keep the framing for another year.
Yeah, I want to learn more.
There you go. I'm whittling mine down here. This is tough. I'll go.
Well, I have mine ready to
go. Ahead, Jake.
Okay. Well, you sound like you didn't have it ready, and I peeked ahead at the script.
I'm not ready. You go ahead.
So, yeah, if you asked me this same question tomorrow, I'm probably going to give you a similar list, but probably a different list. But for the sake of doing this podcast, I settled on Ichiro, Felix, CC, A-Rod, Manny, Abreu, Wagner, Burley, Pedroia, Beltran.
Yeah, there you go. I got Abreu, Beltran, Felix, Andrew, Kinsler, Pedroia, CC, Ichiro, Wagner, Wright, Ramirez, and Rodriguez can just fall off, I guess, and let Veterans Committee and people can figure that out down the road. They did what they did, I guess. Back to A-Rod, too. I was kind of defending him earlier, but if you've seen that Screwball documentary about him that guy out of Florida did, yeah, not a great dude. I think it's on Netflix.
I'm not familiar with that, but
yeah, it goes into the whole.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, his where he was getting his prescriptions and all that stuff, and he's pretty sleazy. But
I figured that you would know by now that all our heroes are assholes, Bonnie. That's just that's a rule to live by. In my book title for in the future, so you can't steal that. That's kind of
like we were talking about earlier in the Discord. Sean Doolittle's a good one. That might be the only one. Sean Doolittle.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I was going to say, I recently just realized that I think I like all this Negro Leagues research because, they can't disappoint me with shit that happens today. Like, these are the people that we disappointed them. So, like, I feel like those are like my favorite players at this point, just, learning more about them. And it's tough, like, following sports and, when you care about, like, oh, what's the person really like? And most of the time you just don't want to know.
No, and there was a time up till, really social media we didn't know. So going back,
right.
sit on the floor with our 87 Tops cards, we could only speculate.
Yeah.
Or see who would get busted for coke.
Well, we disagreed about much smaller things back then, it feels like.
Yeah. Now it's we can all agree with Skell. No, he can go with.
Yes, that's fair. So mine, I think I hit a decent number of the same one. So I've got CC, Ichiro, Utley, Wagner. I threw one to Wright. I've got A-Rod. You make me feel all slimy about my Andrew Jones pick now. But I'm still going to leave it for now. And then Felix and Burley. And honestly, I'm kind of thinking about maybe throwing a floater to Russell Martin now too.
Feeling really good about the Burley support here. This is nice. I like this group.
There you go.
We should vote for the Hall of Fame.
Oh, I think Burley was one of us. He was working class. Just look at his build. Yeah. He was out there. He was the quick pitching guy, wasn't he? Didn't take any time between pitches. Let's get to work. AJ Pierzynski was his catcher. There's another one.
Curious about something.
And this is another thing I think I was in the shower thinking about this the other day.
Oh, God.
TMI there, sorry. But this kind of shows you where my mind goes. So I was thinking, like, talking about, we should vote for the Hall of Fame or whatever. Like, and I know it's never going to change. So this is all just, for kicks. But, like, does it really make sense for, like, baseball writers to be the arbiters of this still? Like, I realize that, like, back in the day, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, like, they were the ones that saw the games. They were the ones that probably had the best or widest breadth of knowledge about players and teams and watching people. But that's just not the case anymore. It just seems like many things, I guess, that we're just locked into the way we've done things for 90 years and we're not going to change it. But no, that was my shower thought for the day.
That's a good shower thought.
And that stopped everything down. So I'll keep it rolling.
I was picturing you in the shower.
No. It's hard not to.
I was pulling up something for our next, I think, transition here in a bit, but the numbers were not what I expected. It's kind of a pointless point.
Back to a serious point, though, is like the course correction with the Hall, like with all the guys, like percentage wise of MLB guys in and Negro League guys and outsider baseball guys in. You know what I'm talking about, Adam? The smaller percentage of guys in from the Negro Leagues and like the higher percentage of guys from, like pre-war that are in. When you had you had a bigger percentage of inductees from, when it was 16 teams.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The issue is like the 20s and 30s is when you have the most players from the white major leagues in. and this is one of my biggest, like, I want more Negro Leagues candidates in the Hall of Fame. And on the one hand, you're like, well, there should be a similar number of Negro Leagues candidates, even looking percentage wise, like if we're looking at like the number of Black candidates in post integration, Black and Afro Latino. But the thing is, like, there's so many candidates in from the 20s that to make it even, you would need at least 40 more candidates from the Negro Leagues inducted, which seems like a lot. And then the problem that you get is like the 20s and 30s and 40s become way too overpopulated because they're already overpopulated. And that's with the fact that like they're leaving out half of baseball. So it's a huge issue. So I don't know how many candidates to push for. I feel like a dozen to 20 is like I should not feel bad at all about saying, a dozen more candidates should be in, just because, that still is like vastly inferior to the white major leagues at the same time.
Yeah, but so it's been since 2006 since the last inductee
for a player. Like we've had
other
executive pioneers. We've had Fowler and O'Neill.
Yeah.
I mean, Mignoso did play in the Negro Leagues,
right?
But in 2006 he was deemed as not worthy as a Negro League player, so I don't think he should be counted there.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I don't know how they correct it other than having a mass induction, like you said.
But the thing is, like, they do that. In 2006, they had 17 people inducted, and like,
oh, it was that many. And
it cheapened the induction because it like rather than inducting the individual candidates, they're like, here's this group of candidates. It wasn't like Mule Suttles didn't get his own like day in the spotlight. It was there was a speech for Mule Suttles, but it wasn't like he wasn't the inductee. It was like 17 candidates from the Negro Leagues were in. And the bigger thing looming over it was that Buck O'Neill was not one of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Ouch. They screwed that up. Yeah.
And Mignoso wasn't either. It's like the two softballs they got thrown, and no.
Too easy. All right. Okay. Last thing on the agenda. Hall of ATG. Adam, do you vote every month?
I admit that I don't.
It's okay. We won't judge you. I mean, we will, but it's...
we will.
I'm not.
I have a hard time.
I know he's voted.
It's fun.
I have a hard time taking part in like these types of alternate Hall of Fame votings. I've voted like once or twice for the Hall of Merit, but I just get so frustrated when like, I don't know, when y'all put Bullet Rogan in, but it was like 76% of the vote or something like that. I don't know. It just, I'm like, Bullet Rogan. He's like 100%. Like, I don't know. This stuff bugs me. So I tend to not vote in any of these. It's not something just for ATG. It's just, I struggle greatly with taking part in any of these.
Look at those. We nailed it on the first.
I will say it's beautiful. Like
it's fun.
The presentation that you have here.
All credit goes to Toad 85 for the plaques, the plaque art. That's all Toad. I just consolidated it into an Adobe portfolio.
Was that Robinson with Cleveland there? I love it.
No, that hat, yeah. Good stuff. I think we're running a month behind on that too.
Yeah, everybody got busy, but it's going.
College.
It's cruising.
That's a fun thing every month to look forward to that we do, and you get some weird, like we had someone rally to get the Billy Ripken fuckface card on there.
That's not so Mike can rally as much as he wants, but that will not get inducted.
It's fun.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, good stuff.
Adam, I was going to say I somewhat understand what you're saying, because I think it was somewhere in this area that I'm showing right here where we went a couple months without getting anybody in, that I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Because we had like Koufax and Frank Robinson just sitting out there waiting and couldn't form a consensus. It almost makes me like somewhat sympathetic to the Hall of Fame and why people don't get in, because for everybody that uses their 10 votes, there's some asshole that's voting for 2 people and turning the ballot in. So it was a good lesson, and it showed us we had that log jam too. So it's kind of like
because I want to say that might have been within Yeah, because we had a new format come in January of 23 in the process of trying to figure things out. And because I mean, you look and it's like Robinson, like the highest vote getters in February of 23 were Clemente, Charleston, and Robinson, and they were all sitting at 63%. And then you have Charleston and Cy Young, the following ballot, with 68.8, and then eventually Cy Young got inducted in April. But there's just, I think, with the way that we've done this one, there's just when you're taking in not just MLB and Negro League guys, but we're also putting in the rest of the baseball world and their history into this. It's we're taking in a lot of players, which was the goal with this haul. We wanted to have a hard reset of not just Cooperstown, but hey, what would a Hall of Fame look like if we put all of the viable leagues that make sense for something like this into something like this? And
it's also just
majority of the majority of the candidates are still showing. Majority of the candidates are still showing MLB / black baseball, but there's some people creeping up slowly as more pops up in just the servers.
That guy?
Yeah.
Yes. Silvio, I don't think has popped up yet, which I will tell you Laz was on. Laz has been on, but I won't tell you what his percentages have been.
I wonder if someone has more email accounts they use when they vote.
Silvio has not. Silvio has not appeared yet, but I think I have written him in the past because we love Silvio Garcia in this household.
I think I'm coming around to Laz being the number one outsider baseball candidate. I'm still working on it, but
it's a great story, and he's got the whole package.
Yeah.
And he died.
In terms of guys
collapsing in the dugout, like it's
it's crazy. Show that card, Jake. You got that handy? You don't have it handy.
It's over here somewhere. In terms of talking about guys that are, I guess, you look at just the broad history of baseball and all of the Hall of Fame caliber players that had come through, because I have always kind of looked at Bullet Rogan as being the best. And then Laz came along, and now you have a guy who, in a sense, is very similar. Just trying to remember just what you have on the Outsider Baseball website for his overall career statistics and everything. So, I mean, you got these contacty guys that also pitched, but then they also managed. So, Adam, between those two, not to put you on the spot with a question like this, if you had to choose between one of those two to be the most complete when it comes to aspects of the game, who of those two would you select?
So this is Rogan and Lazaro Salazar?
Yes.
No.
This is a question I never thought I would get, but I'm into it. So because I am on record as saying that, all the candidates from the Negro Leagues, I think Bullet Rogan is number one from the Negro Leagues. So above Satchel, above Gibson, just the combination of pitcher, hitter, manager. I think he's the most valuable person from the Negro Leagues, period. Even more than Charleston, perhaps. Whereas, as I just said, like from the outsider baseball perspective, there's a ton of guys too. And I think that Salazar is essentially the Bullet Rogan of the outsider baseball.
Yeah.
Between the two of them, though, I do think that Rogan was a much better player, Salazar a much better manager, but I think that the player in this case, much more successful manager, I should say. Like I think he just managed more. Salazar won 14 titles in 4 countries. He won, even with that 37 Trujillo team, like he was a 27-year-old manager. He's managing Page, he's managing Bell, he's managing Josh Gibson. He's just a legend in outsider baseball.
And that just shows the respect that people probably had for him then. I mean,
right.
He was chosen to manage that squad, and the egos that were involved in that thing. And for
all
a dictator,
all I want is a movie about that team. It doesn't even have to be like 100% true. Just win
Yeah.
or die. Like this,
Yeah.
the perfect baseball story. It would be amazing.
And we're due for a
something
baseball
with the
movie.
makeup of that 42 style of production.
Yeah.
What role could we
I'll get to
play?
work on that. I'll see what I can do. I'll call my people.
Which I mean, you could even. I know Adam and I have talked about it before, but I mean, something especially if your Wreckers research continues to pick up as the years go on, something needs to be done with those guys as well, and those stories of hey, these guys started here, because most people are going to look at guys like Bullet Rogue and not realize that his baseball beginnings in a way were with a club that as you have done your research, they might not have been, if you place the Wreckers at their peak in a league, you've stated on a couple occasions that like they might not have been the best team within that league, but they would have been a competitive major league squad,
Right?
Or
absolutely.
a squad that could compete with some major league style teams.
Yeah,
and it's
great.
There's a lot of characters there that I think if even outside of if we're talking movie production, it's just I don't know. It's a lot of tales that need to be told, and there's so much more.
Even before the 25th, Rogan was in the 24th as a catcher. You know who his pitcher was in the 24th Infantry? Oscar Charleston was the pitcher.
My man.
Bullet Rogan was the catcher. We're going back to like 1914 here.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
That's crazy.
I was going to pull out the first Wreckers guy from the 25th that came to mind, which is partially just because I really like Chief Waterhouse. But yeah, I know the Wreckers might have to be a podcast separate for another day because I think we could really get going and get going on them.
Anytime.
Okay, so we'll pivot out. We'll hit the outro, which is going to be actually what we were supposed to lead with was card pickups.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Who's first? I'll go first.
I don't have any, but I bought a record recently.
Ooh.
I grabbed this 64 Aaron in Fayetteville at a shop.
Oh, nice.
Beat up. Yeah, bargain.
Terrible. Love it.
Yeah, it is terrible, but
So, a recent one that came in, 53 George Crow.
That's a beauty.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, I love it. My first 53.
That is. I got a 69 Gibson there too. That every corner is round on that thing.
I love it.
But it's got that 68 season on the back, so you can't beat that. What do you got, High Roller Trey? I know you got something.
I mean, this is
Uncle Trey brings the
high rollerist of all high rollers. I've got a 62 coin Bubba Phillips.
He's a sicky guy.
Just to really round out the Bubba Phillips collection. And also got this great moment in Rangers history. I've got the terrible glare on the base relic and auto from the Game 1 walk-off.
Nice.
That's why you got to go raw, man. No glare.
That's
you gotta touch it like touch it like the Dan Bankhead.
Oh, Sam Bankhead.
I've got all the raws are in the closet. I just don't have access to them.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Well,
I don't have any recent card pickups, but I do have the stack of our Ohtani rookies sitting on my table because I was cleaning.
Got the buck 50.
The Vic Power. Oh man,
buck 50. Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah,
where's I have a Vic that I pulled aside just for this too. It just looks like a work of art. Like it's just a beautiful.
Yeah, that's a great
card.
set.
This 55 here. Now, Jake, I do have a modern card I could pull. It was sent to me by my friend Matt Coate, and it's a modern card that actually has like a bit of a jersey in it. This is a Junior Gilliam here.
Oh, Topps Heritage. That is nice.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
Matt is good people. Matt is very good people.
He's like the sweetest person. Just love him.
What else, Trey? I picked up a.
Oh,
yeah, Dwight Gooden. That was a $10
52 style. Love it.
Yeah, autograph, and then I got another Fred Lynn bargain.
Love it.
Yeah, chasing
I have an 82 Topps Gaylord Perry sitting on a shelf next to my Social Security card.
There you go. He looks so old there. I mean, he was, but yeah. Could go on and on. Another thing I really like, they get me with the nostalgia here, is the old players on designs that weren't around. There's a Bobby Dorr on a 93 design.
Nice.
Or like these
Archives.
like this kind of stuff. The super short prints with like a Clemente on a 22 design.
Just gonna shuffle through here and see if I have anything that stands out like that.
Or that Eric Davis. Ooh, chromey.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I'll say, speaking of soon to be Hall of Famers, catch the focus here. Well, Donnie baseball.
Nice. What's Adam digging in there?
We just missed. I've got like 4 Will Clarks coming from eBay that I would have loved to shown off, but they're not here yet. They shipped. But,
No thrill. No thrill on this pod.
bummer. That's a bummer.
What thrills you got coming?
2001 through 1995 tops, I think, is what I ended up getting.
Graded?
Yeah.
Graded. 89 Koufax.
Oh.
Yeah. Dollar bin.
Sorry about that. I had to disappear real quick. Got a call from my son who's out on a project.
There you go.
What did I miss? I just missed a Koufax.
Oh, just insert dollar box stuff I bought
Nice.
when I'm out Christmas shopping for the family. Yeah.
I guess I'll toss an old one out. I'll take this one out of the top
Close
loader
it
that's in. A true Sal Magley rookie card.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, nice.
I'm a big Magley guy.
Everybody loves Sal Magley.
I think I bought that for you because I wanted it.
Yeah, Hardball Crazy notes that he has a Lazaro Salazar Caramelo Deportivo, which I'm very jealous of. Nice. I do not have that. I just have that Panini sticker.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
is that your Dahigo?
This Dahigo? Oh.
Yeah, look at good God, Trey can just keep bringing them.
The Deportivo got mentioned, so I had to break it out.
Yeah,
from its normal spots in a prominent.
There's the Laz.
I think I showed this card on the last pod.
Wait, is that this set here?
It's like
is that the Venezuelan set here?
No, it's like
it's like Kings of Sports, essentially. I have a Dick Sizzler somewhere.
Vidal Lopez here.
Nice.
Oh, there's the Sizzler. Yeah. Oh,
nice.
Sizzler in. Can't tell what uniforms those are.
Yeah, no telling.
Havana, maybe. It's mentioned on the back, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I have a whole box of all the post-war guys here.
Isn't every Jim Gilliam card beautiful?
They are. Yeah, he's
pink pops. It really does.
There's a bullet.
Oh,
that's from that set they released that skyrocketed.
I'm very pleased that I got that early on, and I could never afford it now.
Yeah, I missed out on it. But
I feel that we're going down the well now. I feel like I have to go to the call for a couple.
Yeah, we will.
A couple of subject pertinent ones.
Oh yeah,
like
the big postcards. Yeah, Buck Leonard.
Buck Leonard auto.
I have an obscure one.
Got the Cool Papa Bell auto.
Nice. And is that a Dandridge behind you, Jason?
Yeah, I've got the Dandridge. Yeah,
nice.
Yep, we match.
Oh, ooh, slightly different though. Different color hats here, right?
Yeah, I think they're what year is yours?
It doesn't say.
I don't know. I was gonna say this one's from '89. I don't know.
87. It says it on the back.
Oh, look at this.
Zap. Jim Zap.
Nice.
Birmingham Barons fame. Except he's in.
It's like a minor league
city they're in. He's in his Broncos uniform.
Did he play with Joe Bauman?
I think they were in the same league at the same time.
Yeah, that's what
I cannot remember if they crossed paths on a team together though.
we could go on and on with the outsider
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Here's a 50-cent box find, the Decal Edge here.
Oh,
Philip
those,
Gallo.
those decals are sweet. I love all those.
What else we got here? Stacked up.
I have my Victor Starfin jersey in a box above my head.
There's that.
Oh, man.
Koufax. Sweet.
Nice. I've been collecting everyone that either played in the Negro Leagues and the ALNL and has a Topps or Bowman card, or players that broke their team's color barrier. But excluding the Hall of Famers, because I'm never going to get a 53 Satchel Paige, that type of thing. So
Yeah.
one of the guys that was near the end of that list to get was Tom Alston, who broke the color barrier for the Cardinals. He only has this one card, which is a high number Bowman, which was tricky to get, but
Greatest set of all time.
That's a great set. Yeah.
somebody put it up for $10, and I jumped on that as fast as you possibly could. So beautiful set, beautiful.
Oh,
There he is.
there it is. Yeah.
Ooh. Oh,
Man, that's a really high grade.
Yeah.
it really is.
Did you like 2 years ago,
Next
Jake?
one, something like that. Next to, I have two other ones over here. This stuff is expensive.
Yeah. It's fun though. All right.
Fair.
Fair.
All right. Well, anybody else got anything that they're dying to? Oh, there it is.
Julio Franco. Are those all Julios?
Those are all just 85 tops.
Yes.
I'm going to wallpaper a room with them, I think. It's going
I need to.
awesome.
Please.
You're just collecting Julios. I'll have to mail you something because I'm going through our alphabetical
This
boxes
is-
and
Where's his page at on here?
purging stuff out.
Where's he at? Where's he at before we sign off?
I was gonna say, speaking of mail from them, this is the last thing they got me, which is just a random Almenginter burger auto.
Mark Hamburger. Who doesn't
Mark-
love? Who doesn't
No way,
love
Mark
Mark
Hamburger? Oh my God. I was watching a Red Sox Rangers game so many years ago, and my son, who's now like 17, was so little, and he was like, his name is Hamburger. And for a while, he just became his favorite player. Like, oh my gosh.
Well,
How it
maybe
works.
he would enjoy this. It's a
Look at
nice
that
old
beauty.
Almenginter auto there.
Oh,
That
that's
is
awesome.
beautiful. Makes me so happy you have that Trey.
Hamburger.
Hamburger.
It's-
Julio Franco, 4,410 career hits.
Oh yeah.
Did he?
Thank you, Adam. For,
Oh yeah.
for
Oh yeah.
Adam's website.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Skull. On Hell.
This is one of my
School.
favorite cards. Oh man.
Yeah.
On Hell School. And the backs are just so beautiful. The green, I don't know. Just 54 tops is something else.
I feel like the colors on all those years are just, I think vibrant is the word I'm looking for. It's just them, like the 57s too, just super bright.
I've realized that like every set from the 50s is better than every set from the 60s, I think, except
Yeah.
maybe 63. 63 is
yeah.
pretty badass.
Yeah,
63 is-
the late in the run in the 60s, they ran into some licensing issues with photos, I think, too. You started seeing a lot of repeat photos, or they'd crop it a little different, like in the 69, 68 set.
Well, yeah,
It's just
you'll
people-
notice
people
too,
at
like
BP. That's like the only photos you got, which is somebody at BP.
Yeah. Like my other dumpster mantle. Ooh.
Hey, I know where one of those Starfins came from.
I was about to
Yeah.
say, shout out to Trey.
Uncle Trey.
yeah, I mean these both have the same photo from your 54 though, Jason. It's
Yeah.
it's the
Oh,
they're
yeah.
just kind of reusing the same one.
Very nice. Is that Miller?
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
Nice.
that's about all I got for cards, though.
All right.
All right.
That hasn't.
Well,
All
I guess
right.
we can wrap it up then. Well,
This is fun.
Thanks,
for-
Adam.
I don't think anybody's here anymore. I think they bolted whenever we started talking baseball cards. But for everybody that was, Thanks for coming by. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, we could probably do a
Pleasure to
whole
have
show.
Adam on.
We could
Yeah.